Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are like me, for the past 3 exciting days, and I learned a lot from this, and I hope you are as pumped up as I am. Okay, so let's go on to today's talk. I actually tweaked the topic a little bit. I was supposed to talk about cybersecurity, but then, the theme of this conference is more focused on AI. So I changed it to chips for everything, from LLM to HAI. Before we start, let's look at this. This is a Wall Street Journal cover a little while ago. It says that chips are the new oil. And agree or not, at least we all know that strategically, chips are now becoming very, very important. Because during the pandemic, we learned that all the cars have a shortage of chips, so that when you're buying a car, you need to pay a lot more. And also, in some places, you can't even buy a car. So this is showing its importance. And the other is right now US and China are engaging in this chip war. So strategically, chips are really, really important, and as important as oil. But unlike the oil, the chips, in order to make good use of it and show its powerfulness, then you need to put a lot of human innovation and thoughts into it. And that's the major difference. Okay, now let's look at the chips. In general, we know that we have been using the general purpose chips for quite a while. So we have a CPU, drives everything. And then later on, we got GPU. GPU, when it starts, it was a specialized chip as well, because it does the rendering of images. Then later on, they adopted the similar technology and apply it to do the computation. And people found that when we have an AI model we want to train, GPU give you, excellent performance. So by the same token, we are now, having a lot of other choices as well, like the DPU. When you have a heavy on network and data access, you may want to use DPU. And you have FPGA, which you are supposed to make anything out of the chip yourself. And TPU, of course, that Google used that to train their AI models so they can beat human being in Go. And so all these things are pointing to different concepts of using the specialized chips, or sometimes we call it heterogeneous computing. For example, there is some company working on using millions of CPU. So put together, they want to mimic the human brain and how human thinks. Okay, and also we have heard this morning's talk about computational storage, memory. So you want to have an in situ capability of doing computation right on the memory, so that you can process data and put it on edge a lot more convenient and faster than it is right now. And of course, there are also many companies making the specialized AI chips. So what are the AI chips? Basically, they're put together to, perform certain purpose. Now, so we are kind of facing the end of Moore's law. So at this stage, our goal is not to put, more and more transistor into the chip, but rather we want to put transistor together in a way to do the spatial things faster and more efficient. And also, this has a great implication along the ESG line, because you will produce a lower carbon when you save power, and you can do things a lot faster. So, this is again very important in many aspects, not just the chips. Okay, now chips. Why do we need chips to begin with? Because innovations actually drives our chip evolution, and that's true. But on the other hand, chips also, when you have an advanced chip, it also inspires innovations. Okay, and Taiwan has been pretty good in putting together a very efficient chip. So we hope this can leads to innovations and new products in the next 5 to 10 years. So I would say that in this explosive age of AI, we would expect that we can carry this momentum and come up with great idea, work together, and you can apply it to biomedical, energy, unmanned vehicle, smart manufacturing, defense, 5G. These are just listing some of the possible applications of this great chip invention. Now, the other thing that Taiwan actually has a lot of SME and small and medium enterprise and startup company as well, and they have great ideas. So we want to help them in coming up with this, putting this great thinking and innovation into the chip so that they can make a product very efficiently. All right, now let's focus a little bit on the AI model. We all know about this AI foundation model, and we are putting a lot more computations on the chip, now than ever. And AI model training, by far, is probably the most CPU consuming computation human race has ever done. Okay, now why? Because if you look at the right side of these 8 figures, when you put a model, put a very few parameters, it doesn't do anything. But all of a sudden, when it's greater than certain parameter range and you put in a lot of computation, it all of a sudden become very smart in every category. And that is the reason that we come up with a big model. But the big models require very heavy resource. And so that means only big guys can do it. But is that the only way to do AI? Probably not, okay? What we picture now is that the HPC data center will be responsible for carrying out this development of this model. Okay, so in other words, our algorithm and all that, and it needs an enormous amount of computes, and then data center can provide that. Now, if you have a very good idea, you want to see if it works or not, it's better to be developed in an HPC center than using a small device, because you can verify your results a lot more quickly than you can do in a small device. So I will propose that in the future, the edge computing training will be done this way, that you can have a development algorithm in a faster computer, but then to implement your idea, but then you use that to implement your edge AI. So edge AI has a different requirement, because power is very important. Okay, you cannot consume too much power, and the model, you need to reduce the size, because a big model, it's powerful, but you cannot put a big model in a small edge device. So these are all the concerns that we need to deal with in the next generation chip. And in Taiwan, we also utilize this model. We are actually developing a language model, because like many countries, we know that you cannot only rely on the big vendors to give you a AI package that only train on certain, based on certain data or certain criteria they put in. So we are developing our own as well. And this model will help our small business to develop the applications on the edge, probably in the near future. And also to show our this society equality, we also are developing some other packages for indigenous language. And this language is pretty unique in Taiwan, because we have Taiwan is a very multicultural country. We have a lot of this very small group of minority indigenous people. And we will try to develop AI model to help them preserve their language and maybe apply them to a lot of devices, so that we can help them, the elderly and uneducated people. So these are our goals. Now, I want to mention a little bit about this homomorphic encryption, because we have another branch dealing with this research. And homomorphic encryption, by definition, means that you can compute the data without decrypting it first. Okay, so this is very useful in the future, and we are developing algorithms and verify it using a GPU machine. But then at the end, we will put in an AI chip, so that we can do encryption very quickly, and you can deploy in the edge device and doing computation and help you accomplish your model training. So I'm supposed to talk about our cybersecurity, so I put just a couple of slides about them. The first one is our NanoLab is running a network in Taiwan, and this is connecting from over the whole country for the academia institutes. And we also connected to the outside, to Singapore, United States, and many different places. And we are constantly facing millions of attacks, sometimes a day. So cybersecurity is very, very important for us. And to cope with that, we develop certain tools to help us, educate the engineer so that we can defend our country a lot better than it is now. So this is a cyber security training system. We call it CDX. But the whole idea is that we will come up with several strategies. One is that we will put a honeypot system all over the country to collect cyber attack. And from them, we can build a malware knowledge base. So using them, we can provide better cyber defense exercise. And this exercise is pretty unique because we deploy virtual machines in the cloud so that you can train the students without worrying your machine being broken after the students grew up. So this is a very unique thing. And then altogether, we are providing the science park. As we know, this is very important for the whole world because 90% of the high-end chip were produced in science park in Taiwan. So we are giving them sharing with cybersecurity data so that they can protect their cybersecurity a lot better. So this concludes my talk. And I want to say that, AI chip is real and it's important. And we can work together through great ideas and try it out in a very high performance computer and deploy in the edge. So we hope we can accomplish that together. And so we look for collaborations. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Chang, thank you very much. Thank you. Now, you've kindly agreed to stay on the stage, if you would. Okay. As you can see, there are stools arriving as we speak, and I'm going to welcome our next speaker to the stage to come and join us in a fireside chat. Actually, so we just one more stool would be fabulous, and then we're all set. So allow me to introduce our next guest to you. He is the co-founder, the chairman, the CEO, and the CTO of AP Memory Technology Corporation, listed on the Taiwanese Stock Exchange, a pioneer of VHMR, the next generation DRAM technology for high-performance computing. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Wen-Liang Chang. Good afternoon. How are you? Please do take a seat. Fabulous. So you were sitting patiently listening to the presentation. I feel like we're going to give you a mark out of 10. I'm not going to test you, but I'd love to have an open conversation about your reflections on the introduction and the context of chips, particularly in AI as well. Now, when you define AI chips, can we just level set? Do you agree? Is that how you describe it? How would you describe it?
There are probably more definitions than I can describe, but I would describe it as a machine learning chip that involves the following key elements: numerical computation, large model, and training. Those are the three key elements that go into AI chips.
Right, and you're nodding to that as well, which is always very promising. So talk to me a little bit about the growth that you see in this space.
We actually don't have to look very far. If I just look over there, if you look at all the data science companies that we have out there, that's the foundation of our demand generation. The industry is layered, horizontally divided. We have manufacturers in Taiwan. We have IP companies like us. We have chip companies like NVIDIA. We have system companies. We have data centers. We have all these data science companies. The demand actually comes from these guys. Yeah. And when these guys multiply by a factor of 10, we're in deep trouble. That's where our situation is. So we see a whole lot of growth coming from the application side, and that's driving the semiconductor growth. This conference is about semiconductor, but it's really about data scientists that are out there.
And of course, that's the very heart of all innovation that's happening. We were talking earlier this morning about the regional dynamics, the national, regional, international dynamics, and the pressure that's putting upon the industry as well. I mean, when you think about your world that you inhabit, can you just bring us a use case or two to bring it to life in terms of what is it you really, really focus on and you care about today, and then what you're thinking about tomorrow?
Let me bring up one use case. And that's actually not, this is in the news a lot. I'm going to bring up large language model. This is in the news a lot. It's actually not the most important. The reason is, if you talk to those companies, a small fraction of them are dealing with large language model. The reason large language model is so important is because it requires so much hardware. It will probably consume a large fraction of all of the hardware that's out there. And large language model, I talked about the three key elements of machine learning chips with numerical calculation, large model. In large language model, we're really talking about very, very large model, larger than we can make it. That's how large it is. So because of that, it's a huge piece of what the semiconductor industry needs to support. We need to build enough hardware with enough efficiency to support the applications that are proliferating out there.
And when you talk about that, that's what we need as an industry to focus on. What are your expectations about how we meet the demand? Because the demand is going to be enormous and on large scale, as you say.
I actually see a lot of challenges. There are, I can categorize these challenges as two. One is cost. If you think about, everybody's already saying how expensive semiconductor is, but we're only at the very beginning of this industry. Large language model application, ChatGPT. The other is power consumption. If we multiply by a factor of 10, 100, the amount of deployment that we have, the world simply doesn't have enough money and electricity to power these things. So I see two very large challenges. You might ask, I'm gonna anticipate your next question, which is how we're gonna deal with it. Yeah.
I hate it when people anticipate the next question, but that is exactly where I was going. It's true.
So the key is to be more efficient.
Yes.
So there are obviously many things that we can do in terms of application, in terms of software, reducing the model and all that. But fundamentally, at the very basics of this industry, we need to make our hardware more efficient. In fact, from hardware point of view, we know what limits performance. What limits performance is memory bandwidth. So we need a better way to build hardware that has much more memory bandwidth at much lower power, and that's what we're going to do.
And as we think about the, and actually that very much chimes with the conversations that were coming out this morning about the efficiency, the requirements to be able to do that at large scale, but also just finding those benefits as well. I mean, allow me to bring you in. Would you agree with that? Is that certainly what you're focused on?
I basically agree, but I want to add that the algorithm part still has room for improvement.
Right.
So we need great ideas, and scientists, engineers work together and see. The thing we have accomplished so far for large language model is that all of a sudden we found that we put in use a heck of computers and we get it out. But is this the only way? I think the answer is probably not. So I think we need scientists and engineers keep on working on that as well. As these guys improve their hardware and so that we can do it faster, deploy it faster, we still need talents to work on the other areas.
And that's why I loved when you were talking about the security dynamics at play. The talents piece very much kind of came into that in terms of creating labs. I mean, when you look at the security dynamics and the talent dynamics, what's front of mind for you?
Security is a layer way above hardware. I'm not an expert on that.
Right.
But I do know this is very, very important. Some of it comes into hardware. The identification part, for example, comes into hardware. All that stuff we need to help. But that's a question for somebody more.
And the reason for asking the question is because when we look at value chain propositions and when we think about potential points of weakness in security, there is that journey between two different players where there's a potential weakness. Hence the reason for the question, actually. So it's interesting to hear you, even though it's not what you do, but it's still in your mind as you are working with others. Let me put it that way.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the things since I mentioned identification, the root of security is to be able to identify who you are, who the user is. That identification piece is the hardware. Right. So that's rooted in hardware. And there are a bunch of companies in Taiwan as well, doing identification piece of it. And we are somewhat related to that. So there are many things that come together that make security work.
Yeah. And your thoughts about talent? This came out loudly and clearly this morning about do we have the talent we need globally, regionally, nationally? Your thoughts about your industry and do we have the talent we need today and tomorrow?
It's one of those things that you can never have enough of.
You can never have enough talent.
I like one of the American politicians who said, "We go to war with the army we have." So we deal with what we have, and I believe I talked about efficiency, and I think even with people we can be more efficient, and through global collaboration like this, we can be more efficient. So it's not necessarily a matter of quantity, but how we organize ourselves that would help us in the future.
And as you sit here in London, I mean, it's a question to either of you or both of you, is, we're here part of very much for an international collaboration effort. What are you most hopeful for from the Taiwanese, UK, or indeed Taiwanese other engagements and collaborations with other regions as well? Can I start with you?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So I kind of divided the industry in many layers. Taiwan is extremely strong in manufacturing, also very strong in IP, but not so much in the upper layers. UK, on the other hand, attacks the problem from the totally opposite direction. If you look at all the companies out there, they are doing all kinds of things that I don't understand. I know they use AI.
As I say,
So-
when you define upper layers, do you mean the innovation,
So upper
use
layers-
cases, the business cases?
Yeah, so
Got it.
we have chips, we have hardware, we have data center, we have system, we have data center, we have applications, we have customers. So UK mostly, I mean, judging from the exhibitions that I've seen, attacks the problem from the other end.
Mhm.
We have very deep knowledge, very deep expertise in financial applications, all kinds of applications that I don't even know how to describe. So I can see that our two regions come together somewhere in the middle. So if we can find a way to work together somehow, and that is a win-win for sure.
And certainly being sort of very much invested in being a key part of the ecosystem. I'm getting the impression that that certainly seems to matter, which is why you're here as
Absolutely.
well. Can I ask you the same question? Your expectations in terms of international
I think,
collaboration?
working together has great advantages, always. And I similar to his opinion that I think UK is pretty strong in fundamental science discovery and in a lot of AI technology development. So if we can work together and pick each other's brain and we can come up with a system of product that is, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I do think that's also, and we can start with doing a research project together,
Mhm.
and maybe working with a small, all these startups, and then we can work something out quickly.
Yeah, imagine what you could build. What you could build. Now, I'm going to reach a little back into your career because I mentioned in your opening that your prior role was senior research analyst with the computational aerosciences branch at NASA Langley Research Center.
Yeah.
In my world, so I'm an entrepreneur. We work in sort of born from the world of financial services and technology and being pushed into other domains as well. And the one thing that comes up a lot is around basically aerosciences, space tech, if I could call it that. Really curious, as you look at this industry, and in both your worlds, as you look a little further out, what are the trends you're seeing sort of existing that you go, if we could draw that in, we could really sort of drive some change? Perhaps I should start with you first of all, and then I should come to the to the aerosciences experts at the table.
The biggest trend I see is cross-disciplinary interaction.
Right.
I come from physics background, so I'm doing memory and semiconductor, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience come from a completely different background.
Mhm.
So the cross-disciplinary interaction is the most important. Nobody can do this alone.
Right.
Yeah, same here. I think aerodynamic community is a very needs a lot of capital for investment. So only national lab and very big corporation like Airbus and Boeing can carry out a significant enough research. But through this research, we also know that all this new development in chip technology, in AI, and it's so important that you cannot ignore it, no matter what you do. So this is the future of the whole culture, I think. So we need to, be prepared, applying all this modern technology to whatever discipline it is.
Mhm. And I wonder if you had one last message to leave this wonderful audience with, as I invite you to leave the stage. We must have a driving message. Can I ask you what that would be? If there were one question you think everybody should perhaps hold front of their minds.
The globe is a village.
The globe is a village. It's a hashtag. No, but all jokes aside, I mean, it is fascinating. That has been coming through loudly and clearly. The globe is a village. Thank you.
Curiosity drives innovation, and there's no dumb idea at all. Any dumb idea can become great.
Inspiring way to finish off this section of this element of the program. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. We've thrown the conversation around in many directions, and I really appreciate all your thoughts. Please join me in thanking our two speakers. Thank you very much. I'll invite you to leave the stage. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very good. Thank you for the chairs. Leon, let's move on to, we're going to move the conversation into a slightly different direction now, because we're going to be talking about the 3 R's of precision medicine. This is basically about redefining the future of healthcare, cardiac and hybrid systems for drug screening. And I really could not genuinely think of a better person to talk us through this fascinating topic. He has joined, or August this year, in fact, 10 years ago, 10-year tenure, the faculty of the Institute of Applied Mechanics at the National Taiwan University. His research focuses on 4 key fields as follows. One is microphysiological systems to develop human tissue systems for drug discovery and drug screening. Polymer-based vitro diagnostics devices for the applications of chronic human diseases. Wearable devices to bring in sensors for swallow sensing and muscle contractions. And smart materials developing composites for the applications of optically controllable pumps, valves, and sonic motors. A phenomenal area of focus. I think you'll agree. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me enormous pleasure to welcome the Associate Professor of the National Taiwan University Institute of Applied Mechanics. Please welcome Yu-Hsiang. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for being with us today. I'm looking forward to your thoughts. Thank you.
So you guys can hear my voice okay? Yeah, I'm very happy to share our study for cardiac chip. And we cooperate with NARLabs to convert lab-scale device into a commercial product. So this kind of cardiac chip is the concept of organ on a chip. So first, this kind of chip is not IC chips. They are made of plastics and silicon rubbers, and most of them are transparent. And they are not implantable devices. They are a standalone device, and we develop human tissue inside. And this mini chip represent a human model. So before we put drugs into a human body, we test it on this drug. And it's particularly applied for drug development industry. So a little background of drug development. So usually, we use animal model or flight biology to identify candidate drugs before we do clinical trial. But a few statistics for your references. So for animal models, there has been issued 3,300 drugs on the market. However, there were 1.6 million very severe events happened. Okay. And then 60% of developing models, they're studying animal models cannot repeat in human. And 37 of them cannot repeat between species. So it is not a very efficient process. And then among 2,400 developing animal studies on drugs, only 12% they can pass preclinical trial, and only 60% can go to phase 1, but 89% of them actually fail. Okay, you hear numbers is crazy. So there are about 151 drugs can get approval per 2,400 drugs. So it is a very inefficient process. So the other way is fluid biology is very common. We culture human cells in a culture dish. We soak them in media. They are human cells. But usual methods use this kind of optical method to image them. But the problem is fluid biology is not 3D, or our human body is 3D. So there is still a big difference, okay? So based on fluid biology, actually 80% drugs fail. And among them, 60% of them have no efficacy, and 30% actually have toxicity. So it's very inefficient, and that's why health insurance and the health care system or medication, why they are so expensive. Because something happened, they go back to zero. Everything go away, okay? So this is our approach. We think if we can have more human mimetic model, we so-called organ on a chip, or microphysiological system, we have a mini-me that can represent the human. and we test drug on them, and then we can study its functionality, efficacy, toxicity before we release them to clinical trial. Okay, so this is what we develop. So this is cardiac chip. We have a technology to develop cardiac tissue on our chip. We can stimulate to grow into a mature heart with highly synchronized. Okay, and then we can use this kind of material, convert it into electrical signal, so we can link to semiconductor industry. So compared to fluid biology, this is a regular method. You can see they are very irregular and actually they are unsynchronized. With our technology, we can have a highly aligned heart cells. They can high maturation and high synchronization. So we can have a heart tissue actually contracting on our chip, and it can represent the real heart. Okay. So by doing so, we convert everything into electrical signal. So you can see there are two different commercial drugs. So by dosage, we can have different behaviors. So you can see we can get a frequency or contraction strength as a reference. So the important thing is we bypass the optical system. The reason why is optical system, we have to go one by one. So it's time consuming and cannot be very fast. And we have to narrow down to one single cells level or a very small scale tissue level. So it's about the cross section of your hair. Okay, so we can have a human cardiac tissue. We can have normal disease model, and it's fully automatic. So we can start to have a parallel study. We can have batch study, and we can provide throughput. Okay. So based on this, what we can do, we can generate data, and we can start to use AI. A lot of AI technology has been applied to optical system. But now with this kind of system, we can largely generate a bank of data for AI to processing. Okay, so we can use that to screen all kinds of drugs, and we can study their efficacy and toxicity. So with this kind of microphysiography system, we call it MPS, or we call it organ on chip. We can provide very reliable data. Reliable data. They are very close to humans' results. And we can accelerate the process because we know we have unmet need in the drug developing process. Usually, when we initially need to screen a drug, it's about 10,000 to 1 million drugs to screen to find 5 candidate drugs. It can take about 5 years, and then using our system, everything can be automatic. And then we can use semiconductor industry to speed up the process so we can get approval much faster and it's much safer. Okay, so now I'm cooperating with NanoLabs. So they are helping us to convert this to a commercial product. So the National Laboratory Animal Center helped me to develop in vitro human model. And the Taiwan Instrument Research Institute helped me to develop industrial mass production. And the Taiwan Semiconductor Research Institute helped me to develop electronic interface and AI computation. So this is a highly multidisciplinary topic. And NanoBio actually provides a full solution. It's a great platform. So I actually highly encourage everyone to work with them. It's a great experience. So with their technology, our chip finally can do the actual 3R concept, which is a replacement. 3R is replacement, reduction, refinement. So right now we want to achieve replacement, which is replace animal models. And we think organ on a chip is the next generation of drug development. Yeah, with that, conclude my talk. Thank you.
That's fabulous. And it's wonderful to hear you talk about those 3 R's at the end and the dynamics at play there. Now we're going to open up the audience for questions. You're very kindly agreed you would take a question. I'm going to ask you one to get you started.
Okay.
And then we can bring microphones around for anybody who might have a question. So my question is, in the balance between quick wins and significant impact, if there were one or two things you'd say, actually, if we could focus here, we'd get both quick wins and significant impact.
I would say significant impact because
Okay.
quick wins we could get wrong answers.
Interesting.
Yeah. So for drug development process, they suffer this a lot. If they get animal studies or flight biology data correct, they go to clinical trial.
Mm-hmm.
If at that stage they found out there's toxicity or no efficacy, they can go back. But once if they get approval and they go to on the market, but if they have chronic toxicity, chronic side effect, that can happen like 10 years later. So there's a huge drawback. So significant impact is more important. If we do it very fast, they're actually not good for pharmaceutical companies in this field, in particular. Yes.
And as you say, the unintended consequences
Yes.
far into the future as well.
Yeah, actually, that's why. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. So for one drug, the cost is 2.6 billion in average. That's why it's so expensive. So you can see the process. Then you go again, wrong again and again. So there's a lot of efforts. Yeah. So with this kind of technology, we think we can largely reduce the repeating process and the cost and time, and also all the resources.
Fabulous. Fascinating insights. So many questions. Do we have any questions from the audience? There we are. We're going to bring a microphone to you so we can all hear you. There we go. Here it comes. As I say, would you mind just telling us who you are and which organization you're from?
Hi, my name is Cameron, currently studying biomedical engineering at Queen Mary University. I wanted to know more about with the organ on a chip. You mentioned that with drug development, it takes quite a while for things to get developed and it's so expensive. Do you think that perhaps as you keep developing the technology, it might be able to lead to more personalized drug development as well?
Yes. Yeah, that's another scenario. So for another application. So actually, many organ on chip is working on this. It's called patient-specific chips or disease on a chip. It's actually you get a biopsy from patients. You see them into these kind of devices, and then you can help doctor to make a decision for the treatment strategies. So in other words, you treat these small organ and make a decision and see how the drugs function to this patient's particular case. So they can provide a dosage level, the combination of treatments, and so before they give it to patients. Because patients, they are so sick and so ill, they don't want to suffer from adjusting the dosage level or different treatment strategies. And actually, let's save time. If we can have a more accurate, more precise treatment, then we can save more lives. There's actually a concept called precision medicine. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay,
Wonderful. Thank you for the question. Fabulous. I love that. Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Just make sure that everybody has a chance to ask a question because it is a phenomenon. It's a huge topic, and we were talking in your introduction about the kind of the 4 key areas that you're focused on as well. If you were to let's go to wearable devices because it's very accessible for everybody here. If there's one innovation in a wearable device that you think is going to change the world, what would you think it might be?
Well, wearable device, to me, there are 2 aspects. One is the health. So that's what I'm working on because right now is aging society. So there's a healthcare loading is very, very high. So it means there are more senior people that need to be taken care of, but we don't have sufficient nursing system to help them. So, but nowadays the senior people, they have higher education background. So, and they are all willing to take care of themselves, means they would like to participate in the treatment process. So they are willing to wear wearable devices to monitor themselves. So right now, smartwatch is very common, but there's only a certain amount of health information can be retrieved. But sometimes what I'm studying now is a swallowing sensor. So most of the senior people, if they have stroke or Alzheimer's diseases, they have trouble swallowing. So if they didn't succeed, they could choke and maybe pass away right away. or get infections. So we are developing wearable devices for them to wear so they can monitor themselves. They say, oh, it's not complete. You need to do more. So they are wearing to help themselves. So, and also they are more advanced. I'm not involved, but the advanced is sweat sensing. We can know more about what happened to inside our body, such as dehydration and other things.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I hope you'll agree that was a really fascinating. It's such a short period of time. You talked to us about your work and your focus, but also throwing the conversation out into something that's so contemporary right now, and then also what people are thinking about. Please join me in thanking our speaker, Yu-Hsiang. Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.